Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So Narada enters the cottage of Vyasa, and Vyasa is not happy. Vyasa is not feeling the completeness even after writing Mahabharata Puranas. So then he's inquiring what must be the cause. But Narada is not directly answering. He says, "Oh, you have all the knowledge. You know, you are satisfied, I think, by identifying this body or the mind as the object of self-realization. Your inquiries are full. You have studied so much. And also you have delineated the subject, that is impersonal Brahman. So what must be the reason?" Then Vyasa says, that is what I'm asking. What must be the reason? If what you're saying is true, I have done elaborate study. I've also given this knowledge to others also, but still, why am I not feeling that completeness? Why am not happy? So you know everything, because you can travel in everyone's heart. You can travel everywhere. And like the air, you can penetrate even in the internal region of everyone. So you are as good as all pervasive super soul. So only you can tell me what is the thing which is deficient in me. Sri Narada Vacha. So first canto, 5th chapter, 8th verse onwards. Sri Narada Vacha Bhavatanu Prayam Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yenaivaso Natusheta Manyeta Darshanam Kilam Bhavatanu Prayam Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yenaivaso Natusheta Manyeta Darshanam Kilam. Narada says, what he says? Bhavata Anu Prayam. Anudita Prayam. That yourself, you, Bhavatam is you, Anudita Prayam. You are not glorified. Yashaha Bhagavata. You are not glorified about Lord. Who is Amalam, who is spotless. Yena evaha asav na tushyate. If that is not done, then one cannot feel that satisfaction. Manyetat darshanam kilam. The philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. Khilam. Khilam means inferior. Khilam means inferior. So according to me, this is not going to satisfy, and this type of darshanam, which is not glorifying Krishna, is worthless. This is inferior. This is what I think. Manye. Manye means I think. Because you asked me the reason, this is the reason. Whatever you have done, this work is not glorifying Krishna. Only by hearing the glorification of Krishna, one feels that satisfaction. Because you have not glorified this philosophy, whatever darshanam, this philosophy is worthless, is inferior. Okay? Krishna Priya Mataji, read.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandat Pranam. Bhavatanuditam prayam Sri Narada Uvacha Bhavatanudritam parayam Yasho Bhagavato Malam Yenaivasho Natushyeta Manyeta Darshanam Kilam. Purport, translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Narada said, "You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless." Purport, the eternal relation of an individual soul with the Supreme Soul, personality of Godhead, is constitutionally one of being the eternal servitor of the eternal master. The Lord has expanded himself as living beings in order to accept loving service from them. And this alone can satisfy both the Lord and the living beings. Such a scholar as Vyasadeva has completed many expansions of the Vedic literatures, ending with the Vedanta philosophy, but none of them have been written directly glorifying the personality of Godhead. Dry philosophical speculations, even on the transcendental subject of the absolute, have very little attraction without directly dealing with the glorification of the Lord. The personality of Godhead is the last word in transcendental realization. The absolute realization as impersonal Brahman or localized supersoul. Paramatma as less productive of transcendental bliss than the Supreme Personality realization of his glories. The compiler of the Vedanta Darshana in Vyasadeva himself. Yet he is troubled, although he is the author. So, what sort of transcendental bliss can be derived by the readers and listeners of Vedanta, which is not explained directly by Vyasadeva, the author? Herein arises the necessity of explaining Vedanta Sutra in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam by the self same author. Hare Krishna.
Okay. यथा धर्मादयश्चार्था मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिता नय तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः यथा धर्मादयश्चार्था मुनिवर्यानुकीर्तिताः न तथा वासुदेवस्य महिमा ह्यनुवर्णितः यथा as much as dharmadaya, 4 principles of religious behavior. I taught that. Artha, the purposes. Munivaryaha, you have done all these things. You have taught all these things. Anukirtitaha, you have repeatedly, but you have not repeatedly, na tatha. You have not repeatedly glorified Vasudevasya Mahima. You have not repeatedly glorified. 4 principles, all those things you have taught. Beginning with the religious performances, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. All these things you have taught. But you have not described Vasudeva. Anu Varanataha. You have not constantly described. Somewhere here and there you have put. Anu Varnitaha. Following in the footprints of the previous acharyas. You have not described because you have got this knowledge from whom? Brahma gives to Narada, now Narada is giving to Vyasa. Narada is giving to Vyasa that you have to gain this knowledge from the parampara. I have got this knowledge from Brahma. That's why Anu Varnitaha. Whenever we describe about Lord, Varnitaha, describe, it should be in the disciplic succession. Whatever we have heard, that only we should speak. Okay. Kamalakshmi Mataji, read.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Tandat Mataji video. Yeda dharmadayastartha muni varyanukirtitaha na tada vasudevasya mahimahi anuvarnitaha. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Although great sage, you have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with religious performance. You have not described the glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Purport. The prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada is at once declared. The root cause of the despondency of Vyasadeva was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given description of the glories of the Lord Sri Krishna, but not as many as given to religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, and salvation. These 4 items are by far inferior to engagement in the devotional service of the Lord. Sri Vyasadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference, and still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagement, namely the devotional service to the Lord, he had more or less improperly used his valuable time, and thus he was despondent. From it is clearly indicated that no one can be pleased substantively without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in pure devotional service. This is called stage of self-realization or the Brahma-Bhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahma-Bhuta state, one is satisfied, but satisfaction is the beginning of the transcendental bliss. One should progress by attaining naturality and equality in the relative world and passing this stage of equanimity. One is fixed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the instruction of the personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of the Brahma Buddha stage, as also to increase the degree of the transcendental realization, Narada recommended to Vyasadeva that Vyasadeva should now eagerly and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from gross despondency. Hare Krishna Mataji.
One small
So this,
question.
yeah,
In this purport, it is written Vyasdeva, it was his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord. When he has deliberately avoided glorifying the Lord, then why should he feel bad about it in the end?
this is all one Leela, no? This is a Leela. Then only Srimad Bhagavatam will evolve. And importance of Srimad Bhagavatam to other literatures has been given.
Okay, otherwise common people like us will think Vyasdeva was not knowing. So that is why it is Vyasdeva was knowing, but deliberately, yes, sir. That is Leela.
Deliberately.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
He is Lord himself, no? Literal incarnation of Lord himself. Okay. These two verses, 10th and 11th, they are the reasons of Bhagavatam to appear. How Bhagavatam evolved, these two verses, 10th and 11th, very powerful verses. And also, how ISKCON came. This is a future prediction of ISKCON. 11th verse is a future prediction of ISKCON. If somebody tells you to talk about ISKCON, you should tell this, 11th verse. Now, 10th verse. 10th and 11th, both should be told. Why the future prediction of ISKCON and how Bhagavatam evolved. Nayadvachas chitrapadam kareryasho jagat pavitram pragunata karhichi tadvayasam tirtham shanti manasa nayatrahamsa nirmanti shikshaya. Try to memorize these two verses. Nayadvachas chitrapadam hareryasho jagat pavitram pragunata karhichi tadvayasam tirthamushanti manasa nayatrahamsa nirmanti shikshaya. Nayad vachas, what you have done? Nayad vachas chitrapadam hareryasho. Chitrapadam, very decorative language you have used. Vedas have many decorative languages, perfect chanda, meters, and all those things. But then, whatever it may be, decorative vocabulary, na yashaha hari yashaha, na hari yashaha. You have not described the glories of Lord. Jagat Pavitram, it has the capacity to purify the whole world. Krishna's glories has the capacity to purify the whole world. Jagat Pavitram, Pragnitaha Karhichet. You have hardly described, Pragnita means describe how Karhichet, hardly described. You may say here and there I have done, but that is not enough. You have hardly described. That is why your philosophy or your book is Tadvayasam Tirtham. Vayasam means crows. Tirtham means pilgrimage of crows. Is the place where crows like to sit. Just see, he wrote so much of Vedas, Itihasas, Puranas in one line. What did Narada say? You have just written a dustbin. Pilgrimage of crows is dustbin. So what he have given is only a big dustbin. Sitting on that dustbin, so-called learned scholars, they only do ka, ka, ka. They just speak, nobody hears. Because it is not worth hearing and it is not worth giving satisfaction also. That is how you have only created a pilgrimage of crows, tadvayasam tirtham ushanti manasaha. So saintly people consider this as dustbin. Nayatra hamsa, no hamsa purusha. Hamsa purushas are those who, when mixed, hamsas what they do? Swans, when mixed with water, they only take the milk. So hamsa purushas, they only take the essence, but still there is no essence in your book also. Nayatra hamsa, nirmanti shiksha, even hamsa purusha are trying to find out what essence I can take from Vedas. They are not able to find any essence in your Vedas. That is why they are not interested, because they take pleasure. Where they take pleasure? Kushikshaya. They like to reside in the transcendental abode, but they are not able to find any essence in your book, because you have described so much about the matter. Already people are burning in sense gratification. You have tried to add fuel to the fire by giving so-called ritualistic ceremonies. So many rituals, karma kanda has been spoken, that even Hamsa Purusha are not liking to. They are not able to find anything. Hamsas generally drinks this, leave aside the water. But you have given so much matter. Hamsa Purushas are not trying to find anything, essence in it. They all consider your work to be a big dustbin, a pilgrimage of crows, a pilgrimage for crows. Okay, Kusumataji, read.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam. Na yad vachas chitra padam na yad vachas chitra padam harer yasho jagat pavitram pragranita karhi chet tadvayasam
Pragrunita
karhi chet tadvayasam tirthamusanti manasa na yatra hamsa niramanti usikshayah.
Pragrunita. It is not ta also. Pragrunita.
Pragrita.
Pragrunita. 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 Okay. Read.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there. Purport. Crows and swans are not birds of the same feather because of their different mental attitudes. The fruitive workers or passionate men are compared to the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared to the swans. The crows take pleasure in a place where garbage is thrown out, just as the passionate fruitive workers take pleasure in wine and women and places for gross sense pleasure. The swans do not take pleasure in the places where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings. They are instead seen in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there are transparent reservoirs of water nicely decorated with stems of lotus flowers in variegated colors of natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds. Nature has influenced different species of life with different mentalities, and it is not possible to bring them up into the same rank and file. Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for different types of men of different mentality. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of the crows categories are literatures containing refuse remnants of sensuous topics. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane similes and metaphorical arrangements. Yet, with all that, they do not glorify the Lord. Such poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered decoration of a dead body. Spiritually advanced men who are compared to the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which are sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures, in the mode of passion and ignorance, are distributed under different labels, but they can hardly help the spiritual urge of the human being, and thus the swan-like spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with them. Such spiritually advanced men are called also Manasa because they always keep up the standard of transcendental voluntary service to the Lord on the spiritual plane. This completely forbids fruitive activities for gross bodily sense satisfaction or subtle speculation of the material egoistic mind. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, and politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancement of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They take pleasure in a place where rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhara, this is the pleasure of the prostitute hunters. But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. Hare Krishna Mati.
So next verse, most important verse. So what is the solution now? We have created, okay. Then Vyasa says, what should I do? If I have created a dustbin, what should I do then? Tadva visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abaddhavati api namani anantasesho ankitaniya shruvanti gayanti gunanti sadhavaha. See, sadhus will not like your work. Better tadvag visargaha. Visarga means vishesha rupena sargaha. Create another one literature. Tadvag visargaha janataga viplava, which is going to bring revolution in the hearts of the people. Create a literature which is going to bring a revolution, kranti. It is not step by step clearing. No. What is the meaning of revolution? A drastic change. Srila Prabhupada took Bhagavatam with him and created revolution in the hearts of the people. Hippies became happies. So, drastic revolution means complete change. Tadvag visargaha janataga viplava yasmin prati shlokam abhaddhavati api. Even if you don't write it in a proper meters or whatever, abhaddhavati, even if it is not properly composed, namani yasho ankitani. Namani, every word, namani anantasya yasho ankitani. Every word is just describing Lord, even if it is not properly composed. Still, shrunuvanti, gayanti. The sadhus will like to hear, will like to speak. Shrunuvanti, gayanti, gunanti, like to accept sadhu. Even though it is not properly composed, but every word is just describing Lord. Now, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur asked all his very intelligent disciples to write about Lord. A big composition, maximum words, write about Lord. So all his high-class students, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati students are all high-class, intelligent students. They all wrote about Lord. Some wrote 400 words, some wrote 1,000 words. They've all brought. Then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur clapped the hands and asked his cook, please come and correct all the papers. It was like very embarrassing even for the cook also, and also for the so-called scholars. So they were thinking that actually our teacher is insulting us. A cook who doesn't know anything is going to correct our paper, and there the cook is also feeling very embarrassed what to do. I don't know anything. I don't know any philosophy, and you're asking me to correct. Then Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur told, you know to read Krishna and write Krishna? I said, yes. Then the paper which contains maximum Krishna's name, give highest mark. You don't have to read anything. Just find out in every line how many Krishnas is written. So in this way, even if it is not composed properly, but you are describing in every word, you are describing Yashaha about Krishna. So that is going to be accepted by sadhus, accepted, heard, and also chanted. And this is going to transform the hearts of the people. That is how Bhagavatam evolved. And it is a future prediction of International Society for Krishna Consciousness. The movement of Krishna Consciousness is stated. Srila Prabhupada just took Bhagavatam and transformed the hearts of everyone. That is why Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, which happens every day in the temple, every day morning, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Okay. Vandana Mataji, read.
Hare Krishna. Tanvas Pranam Mataji. Tatva visargo janata viplavo yasmin pratishloka bhattavati api namani antasya shonkitani yat sharvanti gayanti granati sadhu.
Wait. Narayana, read.
Hare Krishna. तद्वा विसर्गो जनताघप्लवो यस्मिन् प्रतिश्लोकमबद्धवत्यपि नामान्यनन्तस्य यशोन्कितान्यत् शृण्वन्ति गायन्ति गृह्णन्ति साधवः.
Continue. So you understood, Vandana, where did you may do the mistake? Vatyapi. Okay, read. Narayana,
ma'am.
continue.
Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. On the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Purport: it is a qualification of the great thinkers to pick up the best even from the worst. It is said that the intelligent man should pick up nectar from a stalk of poison, should accept gold even from a filthy place, should accept a good and qualified wife even from an obscure family, and should accept a good lesson even from a man or from a teacher who comes from the untouchables. These are some of the ethical instructions for everyone in every place without exception. But a saint is far above the level of an ordinary man. He is always absorbed in glorifying the Supreme Lord, because by broadcasting the holy name and fame of the Supreme Lord, the polluted atmosphere of the world will change. And as a result of propagating the transcendental literatures like Srimad Bhagavatam, people will become sane in their transactions. While preparing this commentation on this particular stanza of Srimad Bhagavatam, we have a crisis before us. Our neighboring friend China has attacked the border of India with a militaristic spirit. We have practically no business in the political field. Yet we see that previously there were both China and India, and they both lived peacefully for centuries without ill feeling. The reason is that they lived those days in an atmosphere of God consciousness, and every country over the surface of the world was God-fearing, pure-hearted, and simple, and there was no question of political diplomacy. There is no cause of quarrel between two countries, China and India, over land, which is not very suitable for habitation. And certainly there is no cause of fighting on this issue. But due to the age of quarrel, Kali, which we have discussed, there is always a chance of quarrel on slight provocation. This is due not to the issue in question, but to the polluted atmosphere of this age. Systematically, there is a propaganda by a section of people to stop glorification of the name and fame of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, there is a great need of disseminating the message of Srimad Bhagavatam all over the world. It is the duty of every responsible Indian to broadcast the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the world, to do all the supermost good as well as to bring about the desired peace in the world. Because India has failed in her duty by neglecting this responsible work, there is so much quarrel and trouble all over the world. We are confident that if the transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam is received only by the leading men of the world, certainly there will be a change of heart. And naturally, the people in general will follow them. The mass of people in general are tools in the hands of the modern politicians and leaders of the people. If there is a change of heart of the leaders only, certainly there will be a radical change in the atmosphere of the world. We know that our honest attempt to present this great literature conveying transcendental messages for reviving the God consciousness of the people in the general and re-spiritualizing the world atmosphere is fraught with many difficulties. Our presenting this matter in adequate language, especially a foreign language, will certainly fail. And there will be so many literary discrepancies despite our honest attempt to present it in the proper way. But we are sure that with all our faults in this connection, the seriousness of the subject matter will be taken into consideration, and the leaders of the society will still accept this due to it being an honest attempt to glorify the Almighty God. When there is a fire in a house, the inmates of the house go out to get help from the neighbors who may be foreigners. And yet, without knowing the language, the victims of the fire express themselves and the neighbors understand the need, even though not expressed in the same language. The same spirit of cooperation is needed to broadcast this transcendental message of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the polluted atmosphere of the world. After all, it is a technical science of spiritual values, and thus we are concerned with the techniques and not with the language. If the techniques of this great literature are understood by the people of the world, there will be success. When there are too many materialistic activities by the people in general all over the world, there is no wonder that a person or a nation attacks another person or nation on slight provocation. That is the rule of this age of Kali or quarrel. The atmosphere is already polluted with corruption of all description, and everyone knows it well. There are so many unwanted literatures full of materialistic ideas of sense gratification. In many countries, there are bodies appointed by the state to detect and censor obscene literature. This means that neither the government nor the responsible leaders of the public want such literature. Yet, it is in the marketplace because the people want it for sense gratification. The people in general want to read, that is the natural instinct, but because their minds are polluted, they want such literatures. Under the circumstances, transcendental literature like Srimad Bhagavatam will not only diminish the activities of the corrupt mind of the people in general, but also it will supply food for their hankering after reading some interesting literature. In the beginning, they may not like it because one suffering from jaundice is reluctant to take sugar candy. But we should know that sugar candy is the only remedy for jaundice. Similarly, let there be systematic propaganda for popularizing reading of the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which will act like sugar candy for the just-like condition of sense gratification. When men have a taste for this literature, the other literatures which are catering poison to the society will automatically cease. We are sure, therefore, that everyone in human society will welcome Srimad Bhagavatam, even though it is now presented with so many faults, for it is recommended by Sri Narada, who has very kindly appeared in this chapter. Hare Krishna. Haribol.
Now, my connectivity was not coming properly. Okay, very clearly it has been told that even though it is not presented properly, even though not presented properly, it is going to transform the hearts of the people. So Prabhupada in a very humble way writes that the foreigner, he is a foreigner, I don't know, but I'm suffering. There is a fire in the house. Even though I don't know his language, my body language will make him understand, yes, I need his help. In the same way, there is a need, there's an urgent need to take shelter of Krishna. For that, you don't require a language. Everybody is suffering, and the solution is Krishna. Even if it is not presented in a proper way, if it is not described in a proper way, but still, one should understand that ultimate solution is given. So Bhagavatam is the ultimate solution for removing the sufferings of the people and bringing a drastic change in the hearts of the people. Prabhupada has written a big commentary on this. Okay, any questions you can ask. I'm not taking the next verse intentionally because you have lots to describe in that. Yes, any questions? No questions? Okay. So, Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam. My homework for you is read this verse. Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam. Nashobhate jnanamalam niranjanam. You have to read this verse. Kuta puna shashvadavat ishvare mucharpitam karma irapya karanam. So now your homework will be what this verse speaks about. Very nicely we read this verse, what it means. So this will be your homework. Okay. So you have any questions, you can ask. What is the meaning of Naishkarimyam? Right, one. You have to understand this verse very nicely. That's why I'm not in. Though it's a small this paragraph, but still I'm not reading this now. Let's go through it very nicely. Okay. Stop here. Panchakalpatarudesha Kripasindudevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavindram. Vaishnavrinda ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai.